do whatever you want. I'm okay with that. Let's see. Right, so we're going to have current events, and then we'll go into the breakout rooms and then get back together and share all our knowledge on the different topics. And then I'll discuss the final. And for the last few minutes, I would just like to end on a relaxation note, do a little progressive relaxation. So the exam is May 6th, John. And so May 5th from 8 to 9, I'll have a Q&A. And on May 6th, I don't know what time the exam was supposed to be, but I'll do what I did for the second exam. I'll send out the questions at noon, and then you can send them back by Thursday night. And I'll go over what's on the exam and what I'm covering and what I'm expecting from you after we get through this discussion. Okay? Any questions before I get started? Great. Eric, your current event.
All right. Do we want the outside the box one, or do we want something a little like we're used to here?
Yes.
Okay.
Outside the box.
All right. So this article is from April 6th. It's from Stanford Medicine. It's published in Science Daily. The title is Smart Toilet Monitors for Signs of Disease. And its summary is that the number one source of data is number one and number two. So there's a new disease detecting technology in the lab of a long name I can't pronounce. And they basically designed a smart toilet, and the concept's around 15 years old. They only had a pilot study done with like 21 people so far, but they're like really optimistic about it. And so it's pretty much an ordinary toilet. It's got like gadgets on the inside of the bowl, and they use motion sensing to basically, it can identify you. Apparently our bottoms are similar to fingerprints, and it can identify you, and then it also will scan your stool for signs of diseases ranging from colon cancer to other types of cancer, and then there's intestinal problems that it can detect too. I'm trying to find the names of it in this article, but
I may be okay with
also,
you not.
kidney failure as well. What'd you say?
I said I may be okay with you not getting that specific, but go ahead. We're outside the box right now.
So yeah, it can detect colon cancer, kidney cancer, and some other tests, and it uses it detects molecular features of your stool, like white blood cell count, and any contamination, certain levels of protein, and that'll help you detect like these kidney problems in the blood. And it has upright to right now, it has 10 different biomarkers that they use to track it. And they did a survey, 37% of people said they were somewhat comfortable with the idea, and 15% said they were very comfortable. So it's pretty much half the people think that's terrible. So I don't think this is realistic in the future, but it's certainly interesting and different from everything we're hearing right now in the news.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah. Do you want more? I mean, there's more.
No, I'm more than grateful for what you've shared. And it's much lighter than what I'm about to share. So.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah. No, mine's not. How many of you have heard of well, thank you. How many of you have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? So I've sort of heard of it, but I've never thought about it because I just haven't. And I did a talk yesterday. I did a webinar for Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare on At Peace with Food. It's something that I've done. And the next two, this slide and the next one, are how I started off my talk, because somebody sent this to me because apparently I'm not in the happiest of moods. I don't know why. And so this hierarchy says basically at the base of, the needs, we have to have our physiological needs met: air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction, then safety, and it kind of moves up before you get to that self-actualization where you become the best person that you can be. And this is the hierarchy of needs. And this is kind of where we might be right now. If we're not learning how to play the violin, or cleaning out all our drawers, or getting all our assignments done ahead of time, or reading ahead, that's okay, because right now we're kind of down here at the base of this pyramid. You know, when you're not sure about what's going on, about security and safety, and you're worried about, yeah, well, when people are worried about toilet paper, then we're kind of at the base of the hierarchy of needs. And so that we need to be kind to ourselves and to set realistic goals. So of course, my Israeli nephew has to let me know that he started a blog because, of course, he's at the top of the pyramid and he's reading all kinds of books, whereas I am watching the British Bake Off for the second time, because that's about the extent of, you know, what I feel like watching when I'm not doing things I'm supposed to do. And this tells me that's okay. So that's all. It just confirms my bias that if my brain is unable to hold on to a thought for a long period of time, somebody else thought about it first. So that's my current event. And that's all. All right. So I may have asked you about this last week about complementary and alternative medicine, and I want to ask again, what do you know folks that have used any of these practices? And what practices have folks known people to use? Because I think I told you I pretty much have done all the ones that I went over in the video. So if that makes it easier for you to admit, or if you know any, does anybody know anyone who's ever gone to a chiropractor? And what for, Eric? Do you know?
I had to go for
Oh, which
both
one?
Eric's.
Oh,
Go for it,
Eric.
man. You got it. You got it.
All right, whatever. My mom just would go and she would always say her back was hurting and she would just go and afterwards it would still hurt. So I don't really know what was bothering her, but
It would still hurt after she went?
usually, I think there were a couple times where she said it like felt better for a few days or a week or two.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Nothing long term though.
Other Eric?
Yeah, I had sciatica for a while, which is like a nerve pain in the leg. So I went to physical therapy for a while and then the chiropractor, and it was pretty much just like a more advanced physical therapy where they did the adjustments and then gave you the exercises to do like on your own time. But it helped me. I don't know if it's because of the chiropractor, but
You don't know if it happened because of the chiropractor. You just know it happened after the chiropractor.
exactly.
Right. Anybody else know anyone who's ever been to a chiropractor? Has anyone ever been to an acupuncturist besides me? And my kids, who I took for acupuncture for their asthma, but it didn't work. Yeah, how did it work?
Actually, I went to physical therapy for my shoulder back when I was in high school, and they did it into my shoulder, and it was the most painful thing I've ever done. And then a few days later, my arm was like brand new. And then after a few more days, like a week later, it just went back to where it was to begin with.
Oh, huh. Anybody else ever been to acupuncture? Okay. How about energy healing? Has anybody ever gone to a Reiki practitioner or a therapeutic touch besides me? Although actually I apparently am been attuned to the healing forces and I could send them to you, but well, I am. Don't you feel better? How about homeopathy? What do folks remember about homeopathy? Okay, then we got stuff to talk about. So why do you think people go to these practitioners? Or does anybody remember why I said I went to a practitioner?
Wasn't it for tinnitus?
Yeah, because my doctors told me there was nothing they could do. And when someone tells you there's nothing you can do, there's nothing worse than feeling like a victim. And alternative providers will always give you something. There's always something that can be done, which I think I told you was why I went to all of them, because one didn't work or it worked for a while and then it stopped working. And so then I went to another practitioner. They give you reasons for things happening, and they give you reasons that their methods may be able to work. And that's what people want. They don't want to be told you can't be helped. Does anybody remember in one of the videos that I asked you to watch on energy healing that this woman was experiencing therapeutic touch? She had been given a diagnosis of cancer. And she said, it's wonderful to have this when you are scared, when you don't have hope, that these alternative providers always give hope. And that's where medicine, conventional medicine may fail, is that because they're so busy that there's no time to, they may hear, but they may not listen. They may not know what to listen to. So, all right, well, what I'd like to do, let me see, what do I have next? All right, so we're gonna get into, whoops, I'm gonna stop sharing because I'm done sharing. And I'm going to, do you all have a copy of the questions? Did you all get them? All right, I'm gonna break you into groups. Wow, what happened here? Wait a minute, recreate. Assign 24 participants to, okay, you can get, depending, though, you have a breakout room and you have questions, and I'll come see you. Go to your rooms, go to your rooms.
Or something like that.
The one I didn't want.
What didn't you want, Eric?
I gotta unmute the tooth fairy question.
Oh, see, now you have something to learn.
There you
Well,
go.
somebody help him here?
Oh yeah. What is tooth fairy science? Choose two of the alternative practices you think most closely resemble tooth fairy science. Think about prior probability. Okay. Yeah, I remember that from the video. That was like, you want to prove that something exists before trying to like do the science behind it.
Pretty much. You
Right.
want to know that there's a reason for it to exist. And how did, and so the idea of when I talked about tooth fairy science was that I explained you can collect lots of data over long periods of time. You can tick all those boxes that make something good science. But when it comes, get lots of data, reproduce it, statistically significant, but what's missing?
The initial proof.
There's no tooth fairy.
Right.
So what I'd like you to do, armed with that knowledge, especially Eric, because now he understands it, is think of I have an idea of two of the practices that I think most closely resemble in terms of prior probability, but what two do you think? And then when you're ready, just go back to the room. We'll just go back to the room, and after you finish that discussion, and then you can tell me what brilliance you've come up with.
Thank you.
All right, what brilliance have you come up with, folks?
So pretty much it's like the phrase means that like just because logic doesn't fit perfectly together in some like cases, or you can't like fully piece together what's going on, you shouldn't put pure faith where it shouldn't be.
Okay.
Like just because there's like problems in medicine doesn't mean that made up things with kind of no real science behind them like work.
Well, that's kind of what I think. So no, I mean, we have a lot of flaws in our airplane design. There's a lot of issues with conventional medicine. Does that mean people should be turning to alternatives? That's the question. And I'd like you to just kind of discuss that, whether you agree or disagree with it. And then rather than me coming around again, just go back into the classroom and we'll just discuss it as a group. Okay? Be brilliant.
Yeah. But like they're like, here's medicine, even though it does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Professor.
Hi. So what have you got here?
We have a question. The second part of our question says, which of these practices do you think has the most scientific evidence for it? Is it asking about just all alternative medicine practices or placebo
Okay,
practices?
good question. Does that mean I wasn't clear? Because there's a good chance that I wasn't. What I'm asking you to do is think of, what do you think of placebo as the placebo effect as a treatment? And then on the opposite side, yeah, which one of the practices do you think is the most science-based? So yeah, you're right. They're two opposite kinds of questions, but they sort of lead back to, well, my bias is I think they're all placebo treatments, but some of them may have some science. And I want you to kind of, based on what I talked about in the videos and what maybe you know of alternative practices, do you think there's science behind it? And then when after you've discussed that, rather than my coming around again, just go back to the classroom and we'll just have a discussion as a group, especially since I'm just recording it all now. So go be brilliant.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
The mean, and I ask you.
You're listening to me. Was that my voice? Oh, the horror. So what's your question?
We were talking about regression to the mean and the placebo effect. So regression to the mean, that's just kind of like the natural course of a disease. Usually like you'll have a spike increase in pain and then over time it'll kind of decrease. So with alternative medicine, you might kind of reach that peak and medicine, but it might not be a reduce in pain related to that. It's just the natural cause of the disease.
Yeah, the video that I asked you to watch, the examples people gave, and you can watch it in your own time if you haven't had a chance. It was one of those body of evidence. Sorry, Jonathan, Jerry asked some people, what are some things that get really, really, go in one direction, but then kind of come back? And somebody gave an example of a snowstorm. Somebody gave an example of, what's the sports thing? Sophomore slump or something, that you do really well and then you stop. But yeah, that things tend to go in one direction, but most things tend to go back to homeostasis by themselves. And so I guess, yeah, so that's what I ask you to kind of review, but then knowing how strong the placebo effect can be, just chat among yourselves for a couple minutes. Do you think doctors should be encouraged to offer placebos to their patients? And then once you've discussed it, just go back into the room and we'll discuss this as a group. Okay? Tell me what brilliance you've come up with. Okay, see ya.
Comes from an herbal medicine then?
Well, yeah, all of it does to some degree, but these are like the more like direct.
Hello,
ways.
Professor, how are you?
Apocalypse notwithstanding. All right.
What island is that behind you?
It's the Galapagos.
Oh,
Galapagos.
I feel like
Professor, so we were just like kind of talking about like the difference in like what were we saying? It was like, I'm gonna mix up the words, I know it. Like between like something natural and herbal versus like natural that's also conventional.
Yeah,
like
we were talking about like how aspirin comes from, like on slide 55 of the Skeptic Guide PowerPoint. It says like willow bark and aspirin, but then it lists other herbal medicines that may, like, I feel like, isn't aspirin a conventional medicine?
Right. So the willow bark gives us salicylic acid and aspirin is acetylsalicylic acid. So what they did was they took the active ingredient from the plant and they isolated it and they changed it a little bit and found that although people would suck on willow bark and it seemed to help. And so that's where a lot of these medicines come from plants. But what they do is but I'm not sure what you mean. What's natural medicine?
Yeah, that's what we were just like discussing, like natural, like from like, nature, like the trees versus conventional. Like we're just discussing like what makes it, which.
Well, I would say herbal and natural are the same in this case.
Yeah.
The herbalist would say they're practicing herbal medicine. I wouldn't
Okay.
call it a doctor, but they would be an herbalist.
Okay.
So what
I
I'm
think the
gonna,
aspirin threw us off.
pardon?
I think the aspirin just threw us off because it was
Oh.
like more recognizable.
Well, and to some people like diabetics, metformin would be recognizable, and some of that medication came from a plant. But what they do is they isolate it, and then they reproduce it, and then they test it, and it runs through that gauntlet so that you know how much of the ingredient does what.
Wait, what was the drug you said diabetics might know about?
Metformin. It's
Is that a type of insulin?
diabetics.
What is it?
It's
All
for type 2 diabetics. It's an oral hypoglycemic.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So chat about that for another minute or two, and then just go back to the room, and we'll just have the conversation going through everything with everybody at one time.
Sounds
and
good.
I'll see you in a bit.
All right.
Oh dear, where did I go? All right, so let's go through the questions. Group 1, tooth fairy science. Remind us what tooth fairy science is, and what are some alternative practices that most closely resemble tooth fairy science?
Right. So tooth fairy science is pretty much how you can collect data and analyze something over a long period of time and have it even be statistically significant. But at the end of the day, it's not something that's even possible. Kind of like the tooth fairy, it's not really real. So an example of that, 2 examples would be homeopathy. Am I saying that right? Homeopathy. Yep, which is the body kind of like curing itself with like can cure like method, or a small dose will have like as much an effect as a larger dose. Kind of stuff that doesn't really make sense. Another one being therapeutic touch, which is sensing a patient's human energy field and manipulating that energy to improve their health, where it could like give statistics that make it look real, but you have to go back and see if it's even possible.
So, okay, those are actually the 2 in my previous class. I had talked about this. Those were the 2 that I had thought of, because homeopathy kind of defies the laws of physics and chemistry. It basically says the smaller the dose, the larger the effect. That's something that is if there was an animation that you can watch that I asked you to watch that showed how homeopathic remedies are made, that was actually, that's actually made by a homeopath. And the idea being that the water remembers what was in it. And I think I said in my video, I don't know about you, but I don't want my water remembering where it's been. But the whole idea that it can do that just defies science. If it's real, then fine. I'll change how I talk about it, because that's what science does. When you get enough evidence, then you update your guidelines. But the thing about homeopathy, well, I've had people tell me that they thought homeopathy was like vaccines, that you have a little bit of something and that's what stimulates your body to react. But that's not true. In homeopathy, there's nothing there. With all of the dilutions, there is nothing of what, at least in the video the animation, the mother tincture. Whereas, your herbal plant or your medicine might have an effect in the amount that is in the remedy. There's no there. So that's, to me, is tooth fairy science. And then with energy healing, I don't know, from a science-based perspective, I call these faith-based practices. I don't call them science-based medicine. And I think in the video that I asked you to watch, I can't remember the young woman's name. She's at least in her 30s now. She was 9 years old when she first published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. She did a study on energy healing, and she got nurses to come, and 2 out of 10, they get 2 out of 10 well, anyway, human energy field. And she basically kind of showed that it can't work. But in that video, you also saw someone who was sick and saying that it made them feel better. And that's why they did it. So excuse me, I have to ask, who just changed their name to Eric Dipsit?
It's me.
Who's me? Oh, okay, fine. I didn't know if I was being bombed. Okay, you may stay. Thank you. You look scary. Okay, so right. So that's what, and what does prior probability mean?
Kind of glossed over that part, but something about not like diving into the research before you prove that it's real, right?
Well, you're telling me what I basically that there has to be a reason. There has to be a way for it to work. So for example, when you have clinical trials being proposed, we propose that this medicine will work by reducing blood sugars because it will increase the sensitivity of the cell to the insulin in the blood or something. Whereas with homeopathy, there's no probability. With tooth fairy science, you have to believe that there's a tooth fairy. So there has to be, prior probability means that there has to be a reason for it to work. That's based for our purposes as a science class in science, that's science-based. So that's what that meant. Okay. All right. Group 2. How does just because there are flaws in the airplane design doesn't mean flying carpets work apply to the topic that we're covering today?
We discussed, we think that statement mostly relies on like, if you're afraid of flying, or like, basically that just because modern medicine might have problems and it can't completely solve all the issues, doesn't mean you should be looking for some magic out, because that's kind of the limitations of humans.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments on that? Just because there are, and I think I spent some time talking about the issues with conventional medicine. You know, you have, and one of the things I talked about was hard science versus soft science. And I didn't want you to think, and I said that hard science is easy, soft science is hard. That doesn't mean that you all need to be physics majors in order to work hard. It just means that when you're working with hard science, you have in chemistry, if you're making something in a lab, you have proportions. Chemical A plus chemical B is chemical C. It's like following a recipe. If you do it right, it's reproducible, it's quantifiable, you can measure it. But when you add people, when you start doing research with people, all kinds of things can happen and it becomes unreliable. People won't take their medicine, they won't tell you the truth. As a dietitian, when I look at nutrition research that's based on food recall, I don't trust it at all, because you're asking somebody to remember what they ate last week, 6 months ago. There's all kinds of issues with that kind of science. So hard science is easy and soft science is hard. And that airplane, when we talk about the airplane design, we're talking about working with people, and medicine has its problems. But I would rather see us work on fixing medicine than encouraging people to turn to alternatives. Although I will say, I was talking to my neighbor today, and I guess these next couple questions cover that. Am I interested in, having people give up their placebos? Oh.
So sorry, are you asking for group 3 now?
No, I'm
okay.
Muting somebody here.
Because our question went into what we think about the placebo effect. So if I'll jump in here. So we thought that it's an okay method ethically if it's helping someone, but it's not really going to make a difference in the long run. When we talked about how it's probably more of a will more help with mental obstacles and help people with their mental outlook on certain things that they're experiencing, but physically it's not really going to change much. And in terms of like which ones we think have the most scientific evidence, it's hard to say because none of them really have a ton of evidence. But if we had to pick, we were looking at the herbal treatments because some of them have been proven to help a little bit, but the caveat's that you can't really group them all and say that everything will help, even if it's natural. Most of them are ineffective, but a select few might help.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That makes sense. And the last group, group 5, will talk a little more about that. I had thought that it's possible that chiropractics, the kind that works just with musculoskeletal issues, might have some science to back it up, that, you know, that it works as like maybe as much as physical therapy, but when chiropractics tries to branch out into using these adjustments in order to cure organic problems like the flu or, you know, or cancer, then no, there's no science for that. But the folks that are more science-based and just work with musculoskeletal issues, there might be some data for that. But yeah, I think that's a good point about there are drawbacks to all of them, but as you know, there are drawbacks to conventional medicine too. I think it's important to kind of be aware of them when you make decisions. Yeah. Okay, good. Question 4. Remind us about regression towards the mean.
So regression towards the mean. So basically it's saying that over time, like the natural course of a disease, you'll kind of hit a peak of where like you'll feel most pain, and then it'll regress and your body will go back towards homeostasis. So for relating it back to the alternative practices, a lot of the time naturally symptoms will kind of decrease. So people might think it's because of these alternative practices, but it's actually just the natural course.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part of our question talked a little bit about the placebo effect as well, and if doctors should be encouraged to offer placebos to their patients, and talked about how placebos, like if just because they do work so effectively, like there's kind of no harm as long as like the placebo is not doing anything if it's helping someone kind of feel better. But again, it's not like a long-term solution to get rid of something.
Huh, okay. So if you went to your doctor, I think what I'm trying to get at, and not very well, is that I think there's a double standard when it comes to conventional medicine and alternative practitioners. And if you disagree with me, help me work through what I think, because I have a friend, anecdote alert, who went to see a naturopath, and she has intestinal issues, and the naturopath took her off all dairy and all wheat. That's usually what happens, for like 6 weeks. And she didn't feel any different. Her GI symptoms did not go away, but now she seems to be lactose intolerant and has a wheat allergy. And I remember I asked her, I said, did your naturopath apologize because they didn't help you? And she said, well, I could tell from looking into her eyes that she was sorry. And all I could think of was, would you look at your doctor? Would you accept an apology from your doctor's eyes if they gave you a treatment, gave you a medicine, and you did not feel any better, and then you developed allergies afterwards? You know, so I think that we're willing to give a lot of slack to alternative providers because they do have that personal touch that medical doctors don't always have. And so that and that's why the personal relationship that you have with these providers is important. That's why if you're going to do it, you have to find someone you like, because if you don't like them, it's not going to work. I had a colleague tell me once when I was fetching about neck pain, she said, well, you should go to an acupuncturist. And I said, I don't believe in acupuncture anymore. So, you know, it wouldn't work. I would, and so I just, you know, I think you have to believe. But I also think in medicine, it's unethical for them to prescribe placebos. I did have a student once say, because she so distrusted medicine, that she would tell her doctor it's okay to give her a placebo, and if that didn't work, then give her medicine. But that's the only time I've ever heard that. Because we don't go well, I don't know. How do you feel about going to your doctor and getting a placebo? Would you be okay with that?
Personally, I think if I were to receive a placebo and I somehow like thought that I was better, I think it'd be very interesting. I don't know if I'd be okay with it, just like not knowing what I'm putting into my body if I thought it was medicine or not.
Yeah.
Think about.
Yeah, we have a lot of different feelings about medicine now more than ever, but for myself, I just need to, I think, and I say this in the video, I can't recommend it beyond a placebo effect. That I ask because this is a science class and you're healthcare consumers, you know, as you go forth into the world and make decisions about your healthcare, that I want you to make it with the best available science information. If you choose not to, just know that that was your choice. You know, I don't want you to feel forced into making any decisions. All right, and group 5. What do you think about herbal medicine versus conventional medicine? What might issues need to be considered for both?
We were talking about kind of like the reliability in a total sense about it. Because in the sense of like herbal medicine, we kind of talked about like what you had mentioned, metaflorin for type 2 diabetics. And while we think it's kind of one person's own decision of what they trust, because I think the placebo effect alone causes a lot of healing in its own sense. You still should have to have like a good understanding of what you're taking. And in the sense of herbal medicine, it's kind of hard to gauge what kind of amounts you should be taking or what you're actually taking. In the same sense of conventional medicine, you don't know what kind of additives or extra chemicals were added into the medicine. Safety issues.
About conventional or
conventional. Like
oh.
we don't like, because you know in the whole process they add other things into the medicine. And safety issues wise, we were saying that in terms of herbal medicine, it's hard to gauge it because it hasn't been put through the gauntlet like conventional medicine has. And that could cause like a lot of unreliability in what you're actually taking. And in the sense of what was it that I was saying about conventional medicine? It was,
I don't know, it's here somewhere. Wait. What might safety issue? Oh, yeah. What might safety issues need to be considered when using either one?
Yeah, and I was looking it up a little bit on like extra sources too. And the thing about conventional medicine is that it kind of treats after the fact instead of actually kind of treating before the fact, and being preventative. And it's also very specific in what it treats, and it's not kind of like a whole body enrichment type of medicine.
So tell me what that means, okay? When you say medicine is treating, are you saying that herbal medicine is preventive?
Well, I think I was, from the outside sources I was reading, I was saying herbal medicine and kind of like homeopathic medicine kind of promotes like a sense of well-being and healthiness in general. Like it doesn't act like it's the sole cure of a certain ailment. It's a betterment type of thing, in the sense of how conventional medicine says that it's like it'll just cure like this this specific thing.
Okay, so are you then telling me that there's something to homeopathy in that it prevents illness?
No, but it promotes like a sense of better living, like in the sense of how you should live in general.
And why wouldn't diet and exercise do that as well?
I don't know.
Well, no, because I'm asking that because first of all, I'm wondering where you got your information from, because what I'm beginning to sense is that they're using words like root cause, that alternative practices get to the root cause of the illness so that it doesn't happen again, right? I'm sorry, I'm assuming, and that medicine only treats you after you're sick. And I think, and my concern is that's where some of these practices kind of reel you in, because I think that diet and exercise are also something good that can help reduce risk and give you an overall sense of well-being, that you don't have to be going in for maintenance chiropractic or maintenance acupuncture treatments. And with homeopathy, there's nothing there to be preventing anything, because those individual pills, there's nothing there if you look at how they're made. So what you're buying is the placebo effect. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. But they have co-opted the whole wellness veneer, right? And people, you have your annual checkups to try to prevent illness, or you have vaccines, and you have, you know, food. You try to take care of yourselves, things that we've learned about this semester to try to give you a sense of well-being. But I'd be curious where you got that, you know, where you got that information from, that was, you know, if they're using that language, because that to me is red flag language. But I'm glad you brought it up, because they don't have any science basis, if you understand what I'm saying. And if you want to take homeopathy, that's your choice. Just know that the only thing it's promoting is helping you feel good about yourself. The homeopathy itself, there's no basis for it to work. And the thing, and your other point about medicine, that they do add things to medicine, what those things should be inert. And sometimes people do have responses to them. And that's why for some people, the generic, it's helpful to know, you know, what is helping, what else is added to the medicine, because sometimes it's supposed to increase absorption. Sometimes it helps to increase your body's metabolism of the medication, but you know, sometimes it doesn't work for people. So you're right, it is important to if you're having an issue, to find out what those additives are. But the medicine, like you said, you know, they've taken in a number of cases, if you have a plant, you've taken the active ingredient, if you will, the medicine out of the plant, you've standardized it, you've tested it, so that you know what side effects to look for. My concern with herbal medicine is that you don't know how much of the active ingredient is that's found in it. So how much do you take and how long do you take it? And that's my concern. But I'm sorry, did I just ruin what you were trying to say?
No, it's okay.
Well, so what was I saying that was different from what you were saying? Or did I just keep talking and make you forget what you were trying to say, which is what my goal was?
Yeah.
No. I get concerned when I hear, you know, that it's part of a healthy lifestyle and it makes you do things differently, because it's also means that you have to have the money to do it. And that also is something that kind of makes me sad. That's also part. I mean, you need to have a good job. You need to live in a safe place, and then you won't get sick, kind of thing. Never mind, I'm going away now. All right, any questions about this topic? So tell me, what were one or two things that you may have learned from this topic that you didn't know before we started talking about it? Cam, what was something new that you learned?
From this topic right here?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll stick with kind of the same section with the herbal medicine.
Okay.
I didn't know it completely. It's just I found it kind of interesting how, I guess, similar herbal medicine was to conventional medicine. Like when you on that slide, we were looking at the slideshow when we're looking at the topic, and like the willow bark and is as aspirin and like things like that. I guess they're more interconnected than I maybe thought previously.
But remember that the medicine itself, you should know what you're getting and what the side effects are and what the dose is. Okay, and some of the risks with conventional medicine could be overdose, and could be that it has something added to it that you may, that may not agree with you. But with herbal medicine, or with taking herbs, you may not know what else is in there. Yeah, so. All right, Max, what did you get out of this that you didn't know before?
I would say I didn't know, I didn't quite get what homeopathy was at first, but now I kind of understand it more. When you mentioned it in the videos, it's at first I kind of thought it was all kind of supplements and stuff, because there's a diluted amount of the original thing in it, but it's actually a little farther than I originally thought, into that kind of concept.
Okay, all right. Fad, what did you get from this topic?
I think everyone should try out what works best. I tried out chiropractor, and like it helped me. So I think it's really kind of preferential.
Mm-hmm. Can I just ask, if you do chiropractics, don't let them touch your neck?
I only did once. I also had like a sciatica nerve, and it did help me relieve it briefly, but yeah, I never went back.
Oh, okay. Well, I just don't let them touch your neck. I'm afraid for necks and carotid artery dissections and all, that kind of thing. Kaylee, what did you get out of this?
I learned more about like acupuncture. I didn't know that you could do it without like skin penetration, and I didn't know that it wasn't actually like scientifically proven. I didn't know it was like associated with energy and not actual like pain relief, I guess.
Well, yeah, what I hear a lot about acupuncture is that it's been done for thousands of years, but nobody can tell me what they were using thousands of years ago. They certainly weren't using skinny little needles. They certainly weren't cupping. They certainly weren't doing, and just because it was done thousands of years doesn't mean that it worked. They didn't do autopsies, so they didn't know what was going on inside the body. So they kind of came up with this system of meridians, and that energy flowed along these meridians. So, I'm not sure what the science is for it either, except that maybe the placebo, and maybe sometimes some people get an endorphin rush when they have needles put in them. I do know that when I used to go to acupuncture, lying in a room with calm music playing and at the right temperature, as long as I didn't open my eyes and see the needle that was right in between my eyes, it was very comforting. It was fine. Now, Ava, what did you learn?
I thought it was interesting. Like everything I thought before was that all this kind of stuff was just kind of like a scam almost, but like learning about the mental game of it and like how it's associated with hope. I thought that was really interesting, especially for people who really have nowhere else to turn to.
Right. And unfortunately, though, sometimes they wind up putting too much hope into it. And I don't know what to say. I think at the end, I say, please just keep seeing your conventional people while you're doing it, so that if something's going to work, that they're working together. But yeah, it's Chris, what did you think?
I also kind of found the acupuncture and like cupping thing interesting, because like I watch a lot of sports and I think it's something that's pretty glorified in sports.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of teams actually have like acupuncturists and those kind of people on staff. So it's interesting to hear that it's not necessarily something that works all of the time.
Why does getting hickeys on your back work?
Right. Because you see them like when they play and stuff, like especially like NBA players or swimmers, and they have these big, huge cups. It's like, what are they really doing to themselves?
I don't know. People try to tell me that it's something to do with bringing toxins to the whatever in the cups and the this and.
Right.
Does anybody know anything about cupping? I know it didn't cure my kid's asthma. So, other Chris G, what did you get out of it?
I've never actually heard of the term like tooth fairy science before. So before I just thought it was some like mythical creature, but it's actually a science. And like,
well, it's something that Dr. Harriet Hall made up.
yeah,
science,
exactly.
But yeah.
So that was interesting to learn about that. Yeah.
Okay, Michael, what resonated?
I think through our conversation today, you kind of put it in perspective for me of how big of a factor wealth is in like health and well-being, and like the opportunity to do these treatments.
Yeah, Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I also had the same kind of conclusion as Bongi, or Orlando. But I thought that it was interesting that there's a connection between, especially on that slideshow that Cam was talking about with the willow bark and aspirin, and I didn't realize that some, I guess, societies do kind of that are very distant from our type of society, but do still use these types of kind of medicines as their go-to medicine, and that they would refuse kind of using this conventional medicine and would actually call that like the opposite of their herbal medicines would be their conventional medicines. So I just thought it's very interesting, as Mike was saying, it's definitely related to wealth and kind of opportunity for medicine.
Mm. Good point. Abby, what did you think?
I also thought the acupuncture thing was pretty interesting. My dad did it once. We were on vacation and he like did it and he was having such bad pain that like he was like, I'm just gonna go to whatever helps. And he did it in the Bahamas, I think. I don't know, it was pretty sketchy, but then he like swore by it. So I thought it was, and I was always kind of like, I don't know, not that into it. And I thought it was interesting that see that a lot of other people like also say that it doesn't work for them.
Well, that it works for me is kind of a, you know, that's an anecdote. And
Yeah.
anecdotes are where you start doing research. It's not where you make your conclusions, or at least from a science perspective. Anybody else have any comments? All right, well, let's talk about the final. Let's see, let me look at my slides. I think the final is on a day. Okay, so it's, what date is the final? Oops, that's the wrong slideshow. Sorry.
I think it's the 6th.
May 6th.
Yeah, you said it's the 6th due the midnight on Thursday.
Okay, yeah. So what I'll be available the night before, I'll be on Zoom because where else am I going to be? If you have any questions, it's going to cover cancer and this topic. And what's going to happen is that the questions for cancer, they'll be similar to like with the second exam where I'll ask you some questions or give you some choices. There may be 2 or 3 short answer, you know, short essay questions. And then for this topic, what I'm going to do is have you compare an evidence-based video to some practitioner-based YouTube videos that I've been looking for on the different topics. I'm going to post Harriet Hall videos. I'll give you the links to like 4 different practices, maybe the 4 that we covered today. And then I'll have, I can't find long videos and I think that's fine. I don't think you need to watch. Hers are like 25 minutes anyway. A couple of short videos on acupuncture, what it does, energy healing, how it works. And then, so pick one topic and watch both sides. Watch the evidence-based and the practitioner-based. And then write, wait, I have down here what I'm gonna ask you to write. Let me see, oops, I had it somewhere. Come on. Well, basically I'm gonna say, would you do this practice? Why not? What's the evidence for doing it? And so that's what I'll ask you to write in like 2 pages. I know one year I used a similar assignment for a snow day assignment when we had lots of snow days, and I had picked acupuncture and I had them watch Dr. Hall, and then I had them watch, and I couldn't find the video, just these 2 people talking about acupuncture and watching somebody get a treatment. And a lot of students just wrote they would never do acupuncture because they didn't like needles. So needles notwithstanding, you know, suppose that, you know, what they say works, would you do it? Why would you do it? What's the science for it? Okay, so kind of the critical thinking that we've been working on this semester that we've kind of tried to do, you know, kind of let that play in when you write your paper. And that's what it'll be. Those 2 things, the cancer and the skeptic's guide. And I'll send out the questions the day of around noon, and you get them back to me the next day by 6. I have everything posted on Blackboard right now, I think out of 100%. If your assignments are not 100% or close, then like if you have a 75, then I'm missing an assignment or I'm misgraded. I looked at my spreadsheet wrong. So get in touch with me or take snapshots or email, you know, me the ones that you've sent, because I'd like everybody to get 100 because that's worth 20% of your grade. And then so that you can figure out how hard you need to study to get the grades you want for this class. And I don't know what the story is with pass-fail. I don't know when I'm supposed to find out if any of you are taking it, and that's, you know, your decision. You have to work kind of hard to fail, although I did have a person in my other class managing to do that work, but we talked about it. So any questions? So then before you go, before we finish, I'd like to just take about 3 minutes, 4 minutes to do a progressive relaxation with you. I'm going to tell you what it is, and if you want to do it, fine. Otherwise, you don't have to close your eyes, but I just think it might be a nice way to end things. I'm going to ask you to relax for the next few minutes, to loosen any restrictive clothing and let yourself sit in a comfortable position. I'm going to tell you to focus your eyes high on the top of the room as you inhale and close your eyes as you exhale and get rid of all that tension and stress. And then we'll go through what's called, it's a progressive relaxation, starting with your eyes and just kind of working through. I used to do this when my kids were little and they couldn't sleep. I called it the thing. I'm going to do the thing with you. And then I'm just going to say, in this relaxed state, you can say to yourself, in the days ahead, I know what I need to do to take care of myself. To keep my energy conserved, to keep my mind clear. I'll be able to sleep at night and wake up in the morning. I'll be able to write my papers and study. And on the day that I have these projects due, I'll wake up knowing that I'm prepared. I'm confident of my abilities to finish my exams. And then I'll count to 5 and tell you to open your eyes. Okay? So that's what I would like to do with your permission. All right, so just kind of, all right, so I'd like you to please relax for the next few minutes. Loosen any restrictive clothing and allow your body to sit in a comfortable position. As we begin, I would want you to focus your eyes up high somewhere in the room as you inhale deeply. And now allow your eyes to close as you exhale completely. You may allow your eyes to remain closed as you again breathe in deeply and exhale completely. Feel yourself relaxing more and more as you inhale. Let go of tension and stress as you exhale. As you continue to listen to the sound of my voice, all the muscles in your body loosen up and relax completely. Feel the muscles in your forehead relax. Your eyes rest in their sockets. Your cheek muscles relax. Your tongue rests on the floor of your mouth, feeling heavier and heavier. Your neck muscles relax. Your shoulders rest away from your ears. Your arms and elbows relax. Your wrists and fingertips relax. As you listen to the sound of my voice, all the muscles in your body loosen up and relax completely. Your chest muscles relax. Your abdominal muscles relax. Hips, knees, shins, toes, all the muscles in your body loosen up and relax completely. And in this relaxed state, you may say to yourself, in the days ahead, I know what I must do to take care of myself, to conserve my energy, and to keep my mind clear. I'm able to sleep well at night and waken refreshed in the morning. I'm able to study for my exams, write my papers for my classes because I'm managing my schedule in an efficient and timely manner. And on the days of my exams, I will wake up knowing I'm ready and prepared. When I look at my exams, I know that I can focus completely on the information being asked of me. I'm able to recall the responses and answer the questions in a clear, concise manner. I feel confident of my abilities to complete my assignments. And now, as I count to 5, you'll be able to 1, get in touch with your body and breathing. 2, become aware of the room around you. 3, know that in the days ahead, you're earning the grades you've worked towards all semester. 4 and 5, wide awake, alert and clear. Wide awake. All right, we're done. Thank you for sticking with me through this shit show of a semester. Take care. I will be around on Thursday, next Thursday. If you have any questions, if you just want to check in, I will miss you. It's been an extraordinary time. All right.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Professor, before I head out, I just had a quick question.
Sure.
So I submitted my assignments a couple days ago. I just wanted to ensure that you received them.
I think I changed your grade on Blackboard. Do you want to check while we're sitting?
Sure, thank you. Also, that was very relaxing. I woke up and just wow. Well, not woke up, but like opened my eyes.
Oh,
It
well,
was-
let me stop the recording, and then